Okay, so the mPEAK practice that I'll be introducing today will be calling fire breathing. This was traditionally known as Tummo breath, or in Tibetan that would mean inner fire. It's also sometimes called holotropic breathing, transformational breathing, or the Wim Hof Method. They all are slight variations on the same. This can be used before meditation. It can also be used sometimes before like a cold shower, before exercise, or any time during the day you just want to pause and energize. This breath is a little bit different than the four-square breathing that you're already familiar with, in that that is more of a stress-relieving, calming, something that settles the sympathetic nervous system down, and this is a more activating, energizing preparation type of a breath to ready you for an event. But I've also found that it can create kind of a certain altered state before meditation that can be centering, it can be very focusing, and can bring a certain energizing motivation to whatever the mindfulness meditation practice you're engaged in for that day. We'll be starting off practicing this 3 rounds of 30 breaths each day. So a little bit about the breath technique is that the inhale itself is a very active, long breath. We'll breathe through the mouth so that you can bring as much oxygen into the body and the lungs as possible. And then the out breath is more of just a letting go. And so the in-breath kind of starts in the stomach and then builds up into the chest, and then maybe even imagining it expanding upward. And then with the exhale, it's just letting go. Before I begin, I like to stretch out my ribs and my lungs a little bit. And so you can practice this along with me. I'll just expand my belly as much as possible by taking a big inhale. And then I push outward, and then sometimes we'll even hold that expanded belly and stretch in a lot of different directions, sometimes even twist. And it feels like it opens up a capacity. I'll then try to breathe up a little bit higher into my chest without letting my belly expand. So belly stays flat, chest puffs up, and then again we'll kind of just stretch around a little bit. And you'll feel like you're stretching from the inside out. Okay. Once I've done that a few times, I will go into my first set of 30 breaths. At the end, some people like to complete with an exhale and then hold the exhale for as long as possible. Others advise ending on an inhale. So after the 30th breath, you would take as long of an inhale as possible, hold it, and maybe even kind of expand, push it down. I sometimes will lift my chin up and then just hold for what can feel like in a hyper-oxygenated state forever. Really, I mean, it's amazing how long you might feel that you can hold your breath for, but it's important not to make it a competition. And really, so trusting your body's intuition and wisdom around when it's appropriate to let go of the breath. And then once you're complete, perhaps just letting the breath come back to normal for a few moments before starting your second round of 30 breaths. Again, you'll repeat this 3 rounds of 30 breaths, holding for as long as you can at the top or at the bottom, or the inhale or at the exhale, at the end of each cycle. It's also important to note that dizziness, lightheadedness, pulsing, streaming energy through the body is all a typical experience. You can expect that, so it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. In fact, that is part of the fun of the practice and part of the benefit, is learning to feel into this altered state, learning to ride the waves of what can feel somewhat ungrounding, or to some it can feel very grounding. And so if you do feel this kind of energy, this kind of dizziness, just breathe into it, allow it, and see what happens. I think you'll be You'll be surprised. So now let's go ahead and do one cycle of breath together. You can pace with me, but if you feel like you have another pace, your own pace, that's fine too. Or if you'd like to just watch one and then do it on your own after, that's also fine. So I'm already kind of stretched and prepared. So I usually begin by just sitting quietly for a moment, anchoring myself. And then the breath is like this. You can hold your breath for longer and